Hello, my name is Rachel. I am part of the Solar Switch team, and we are very excited to be offering you this Solar 101 webinar, where you can learn all about solar installations. You will be hearing from our partner, Solar United Neighbors. Solar United Neighbors is a vendor neutral, nonprofit organization that works throughout the US to help people go solar and fight for their energy rights. They are incredibly knowledgeable on solar, and we are happy to be working with them to offer Solar Switch. They will walk you through the basics of solar technology and economics. At the end of their presentation, you will also be presented with information that is specific to where you live. Our program conducts reverse auctions with qualified solar installers, which result in discounted prices on high quality solar installations. If you choose to register for our program, then after the auction has taken place, there will be another series of webinars available to you. Those sessions will walk you through the Solar Switch personal recommendation page and the winning solar packages. Those webinars will include a presentation from your winning installer, where you can learn more detailed information and more about the winning products. In addition to our webinars, you can access more information about solar panels and our program on our frequently asked questions section of our website. Without further ado, you will now hear from our partner, Solar United Neighbors.
Hi, my name is Corey Ramsden. I'm the VP for Go Solar Programs here at Solar United Neighbors, or SUN, and I'm here to cover some basics on solar technology and economics. This information will better prepare you to make a decision on how to go solar. At SUN, we're a vendor-neutral 501c3 nonprofit that helps people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. We're a national organization with staff all over the country. In 11 states, DC and Puerto Rico, we also offer bulk purchasing programs like this. Since we got our start in 2007, we've helped thousands of people go solar. Our story began with something called the Mount Pleasant Solar Co-op in Washington, DC back in 2007. Walter, pictured on the left, is the son of our executive director, Anya Schoolman. He and his friend Diego wanted to go solar. Anya looked into it and quickly found out that going solar wasn't so easy at the time. Walter and Diego went door to door around the neighborhood and signed up 50 neighbors interested in working together to untangle the complicated process. After lots of meetings and research and coordination, 45 neighbors in that first group went solar. After that, Anya started getting calls from people all over the country wanting to organize similar groups. Today, we focus on helping people go solar, joining together and fighting for their energy rights. Sometimes that means an educational webinar like this, or it could be a solar happy hour to celebrate a new batch of solar homeowners. And sometimes it means defending solar energy bill crediting policies, or working to pass a state law to prevent homeowners associations from stopping solar, or working with a city to make solar permitting easier for everyone. Before we get into the presentation, I want to take a moment to address the inequities in our current energy system. Low-income and communities of color have the highest energy burdens. On average, low-income households spend 7.2% of their income on utilities, while higher incomes spend only 2.3%. Communities of color, particularly the Black community, bear an unfair share of the cost of energy production, but receive fewer benefits. Families of color are more often harmed by higher utility bills and shutoffs. On top of that, housing discrimination is a barrier to home ownership and thus solar ownership. Rooftop solar lets communities invest locally. It creates good local jobs and it brings control of the energy system within our reach. We're working hard here toward a new energy system that everyone can participate in, one that is fair and equitable and has rooftop solar as the cornerstone. So let's get to the main part of the presentation. In this webinar, we'll be covering not only the technology topics you need to be a good consumer, but also the economics and incentives of solar that make it such a great way to invest in your home and lower your electricity costs for the long term. Today, we're talking about solar photovoltaic or solar PV technology. PV technology converts light energy into usable electricity. The majority of today's solar market is PV technology. Solar thermal is another residential solar technology. That would be for heating a pool or directly heating your home's hot water, but it is a small percentage of today's solar market. So we'll be talking about strictly solar PV or solar photovoltaic technology here. A solar panel is constructed of silicon cells and is surrounded by layers on either side to protect it from the elements and make it rigid so it can be mounted securely. The silicon cells convert the sun's light into electricity. These panels are connected to the roof through a racking system. Racking comes in a variety of types that allow solar installers to connect a solar array to just about any building or ground location. One of the most common roofing types is asphalt shingle. But for this type of roof, attachments are made to the rafters of your home through the roof and then waterproofed to prevent leaks, either through flashings, as seen in this photo. Specialized compression and sealant attachments are also an option. Those attachments provide the base for aluminum rails, and then the panels are bolted on top of those rails. Here's another roofing type. This is a standing seam metal roof that shows the use of clamps to attach to the roof seams and then to the racking that sits on top of it. Fun fact, this is my roof. I live in Washington, D.C., and this system has been on my roof since 2012, generating electricity to cover about 40% of my energy needs. So let's talk a little bit about what makes a good roof for solar. A solar array works best when it has direct sunlight hitting it. As you can see here, there are several factors that make a good roof for solar. Typically, a roof facing east, south, or west with minimal shade and enough space, usually at least 200 square feet, will be best for solar production. You also want to make sure your roof has enough life left on it so you don't have to pay someone a couple $1,000s, usually, to come back and uninstall the solar array, so a roofer can fix or replace your roof and then have a solar installer reinstall the solar afterwards. Generally speaking, your roof should have at least 10 to 15 years of life left on it if you're considering solar. If you have space and your local permitting rules allow it, putting solar on the ground is another great option. The panels can be pointed directly south and benefit from better airflow beneath them to maximize energy production. Ground mount systems cost a little more because of the additional materials and the need for trenching the wires underground back to your home. Not all solar installers offer ground mounts, and they may not be part of this program, so be sure to ask your installer if you're interested in that option. Solar inverters are the brains of the solar array. They convert the electricity coming from the panels into a form that your house can use. They also allow you to see energy production from the solar array and how it performs over time, because inverters report that information to an online monitoring app you can access. There are a few different kinds of inverters. String inverters, on the left, are a single unit that control many panels. Microinverters are smaller and get attached behind each panel to control it individually. And optimizers plus a string inverter are sort of a combination of the two. Your installer will recommend the type they feel is best for your home, depending on things like how much shade there is. Shade can greatly impact how much energy your system will produce. Microinverters and optimizers are often recommended when there is potential for intermittent shade. Your electric panel is where the output of your solar array will go. Your installer will run wires from your inverter equipment to your electric panel so that solar generated energy can power some or all of the electric loads in your home. In some cases, your electric panel may need an upgrade to support solar, but this isn't common. Your installer can tell you whether you need one once they take a closer look at your home. So let's put this all together. You can see here, we put all the components together in one solar array. The panels are on the roof. The wiring comes down into your inverter. Then the wiring goes into your main electric panel. From there, it powers loads in your home. And when you are making more than you need, that energy goes back out onto the grid to power other things nearby in your area. We'll discuss more about excess electricity production later in the webinar. Let's make sure we're on the same page with some terms we'll be using. First, a kilowatt is a measure of power capacity. That's the output rating of your solar panels and the solar array as a whole. A kilowatt hour, on the other hand, is energy and is what your array will produce over time. This is also what you pay for on your utility bill. Average systems can range from 6 or 7 kilowatts, but sometimes might be as small as 3 or as big as 15 kilowatts or more. How big your system is will depend on several factors. 1, how much space you have for solar. 2, how much energy you use in a year. And 3, your budget. We see lots of interest in batteries in our work, so let's talk about energy storage. Without batteries included, your solar array will not produce electricity when the utility grid is out. This is because inverters are designed not to send electricity back into the grid during an outage so that repair people can safely fix the lines. If you want power when the grid is down, you need to add batteries. This lets you store electricity, and then you can disconnect from the grid in an outage and run some or all of your house on the batteries. The batteries get recharged by the solar panels. Batteries can be expensive, so you need to consider how often the power goes out and what's important to keep running when it does. In most states, adding batteries right now is more about backup power when the grid is out. Due to the high cost of batteries, they are usually not going to make you money. That's starting to change in some places, though, where battery owners can get paid to help out the grid, but this is still relatively new. Here's a more concrete example of the kind of things you can run when the power is out if you have a battery. Depending on how much battery storage you can afford, you may have to choose how much you want to run on batteries during an outage. This family chose only to run some of their loads, with the solar array recharging their batteries. As you can see, some appliances like a dryer or an electric stove require more power and energy to run, so they chose not to include those. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit here and talk about solar crediting. What happens when you are producing more solar energy than you can use in your home at a given moment? The answer is those electrons flow back out onto the grid to power nearby electrical loads in your neighbor's home or maybe even the business down the street. Once those electrons leave your house and pass through your electric meter, you can get a credit for producing that electricity. This credit usually shows up on your electricity bill. How much of a credit depends on where you are and the rules in your area. Those rules can vary by state or even by utility. In some places, the credit value is the same for every kilowatt hour you send to the grid as the cost to you to buy that kilowatt hour. This is called full energy net metering. In other places, the credit value is less and can even fluctuate based on the time of day or the time of year. You can check with our team about the rules in your area, and you can also ask your installer. We'll also go over more specifics on the rules in your area later in the webinar. In the last part of this section, let's cover some common questions from people considering solar. First, warranties. Your solar array has several kinds of warranties. First, the panels and inverters both come with product warranties from the manufacturer. This covers product defects. They can range from 10 to 25 years depending on the product, and for the inverters, you can usually pay a little extra to extend the warranty period. The panels also come with a production warranty. This warranty is the manufacturer's promise that the panels will continue to produce at a specific rate, which often declines very slowly over time. These warranties are usually 25 to 30 years. Last, you have a workmanship warranty from your installer. This warranty usually covers the work they do to install a system, including roof penetrations. These warranties can range from 2 years all the way up to 20, depending on the installer. It's common for bulk purchase programs with our installers in bulk purchasing programs to offer longer warranties due to the competitive bidding process. Homeowners insurance. When you install solar, there's typically no impact on your home insurance rates, but we have heard of some companies increasing rates and some decreasing them. It's best to call your insurance company ahead of time and let them know you're installing solar and ask them about any impact to your policy. Maintenance. Solar is a very low maintenance technology, but like anything else installed in your home, like an air conditioner or a furnace, you need to get it inspected periodically. We typically recommend having someone come take a look and do a visual inspection every 3 to 5 years. This is also a good time to get your panels cleaned if you live somewhere where dirt and dust tend to accumulate. Speaking of cleaning, if it rains periodically where you live, then it's usually not necessary to clean your panels. However, if you live in a very dry climate, you may want to wash your panels once a year to remove any buildup of pollen or dust. If you do clean your solar panels, we suggest using lukewarm water and no household cleaning products because they may damage the panels. You can also hire someone else to clean your panels. And please, if you can't reach your panels safely, call a professional to clean them instead. System lifespan. Solar arrays are built to last 20 to 25 years. They are an asset that reduces your cost of electricity for the long term. So it's important to keep them in good working order. Homeowners Association. If you live in an area with a homeowners association, be sure to check with them when going solar to confirm the process for approval. Many HOAs are supportive of solar, but some aren't. It's best to know ahead of time to avoid any surprises. In many states, there are also laws that sit to say if or how much an HOA can restrict solar. Your installer may also be willing to help you through this process, and we have a guide available as well to help you navigate the process. And last, historic districts. If you live someplace in a historic preservation rules, be sure to ask your installer what additional steps may be required. Historic districts sometimes restrict whether your panels can be visible from street level. This may require the installer to make different design decisions to accommodate the rules, and there may be additional approval steps to get the permit. Moving on to solar economics. That covers all the tech topics we want to share, so let's switch now and talking about the economics of solar. As you can see from this chart, the cost of solar has dropped dramatically over the years. Gone are the days of solar being a boutique investment for the well-off. Because of solar price declines and various financing options, solar is available to a wider and wider cross-section of people. As that price has come down, the main area of cost for installers has changed. The main takeaway from this graphic here is that the biggest cost to installers these days are soft costs, or in other words, everything but the equipment and materials. That includes the cost of finding new customers like you. This is one of the reasons that bulk purchasing programs like this work. They reduce the cost to installers to find customers, and you share that savings with them. One of the main drivers of the economics of solar is the federal tax credit. Available all over the country, and thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, it's set at 30% of the system cost until 2032. This is a non-refundable credit, which means that it is directly reducing your tax liability. If there's any credit left over in 1 year, you can roll it over and take the rest of it in future years until it's used up. If you own your home, this credit is likely available to you. As always, with any tax issue, please consult your tax professional to make sure you understand whether this credit is applicable to your circumstances. To pay for solar, most people need some sort of financing. There are a lot of options available today. Loans are available through your installer, and you can also source those funds directly from your local bank or credit union, or even a home equity line of credit. In some states, third-party ownership is also available. In this arrangement, someone else owns the solar array and maintains it, and you just pay them monthly for either the use of the array, which is a lease, or for each kilowatt hour the array generates, which is called a power purchase agreement, or PPA. Thanks for listening. We're mostly done, but there are some solar topics that are more specific to where you live, like how solar is credited and valued, state and local incentives, some local tech considerations, and local pricings for solar. We'll cover these topics next.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Tristan Rader. I am the Ohio Program Director here at Solar United Neighbors. And part of what my job here today is to tell you a little bit about what's going on in Ohio. We've got some very interesting Ohio-specific information as it relates to solar. So let's just jump right into it. So you heard a little bit about how bill crediting works, but let's talk a little bit more about how net metering works here in Ohio. So first off, what is net metering? How does net metering work? Net metering is this law that we have in Ohio that all the investor-owned utilities, so the Dukes, the AEPs, the First Energies, illuminating companies, Ohio Edisons of the world, have to actually abide by. And that's when you generate more electricity than you need, you're actually going to get a credit for it. So it's a crediting system that allows for you to, again, generate as much energy as you produce throughout the course of a year. So you overproduce sometimes in the summer months if you have a large enough system. I always use my system on my roof as an example. I have a 6 kilowatt array on my roof. And in the summer months, I usually produce twice as much energy as I need. And then I bank those credits through the summer months, and I use those credits on my bill in the winter months. So that mechanism in the law actually allows solar to really pay off in the long run. So let's take a look at this a little bit closer. First, the solar panels on your roof collect that sunlight. That sunlight then is converted to the electricity, and then it's inverted to from direct current to alternating current, so it can be used in your home. That energy then passes through your meter if you're producing more energy at any given moment than you use. And it then goes back out to the grid, and you get a credit for it through what's called a bidirectional meter. So your meters actually keep track of how much energy you're putting on the grid and how much energy you're using from the grid, so that when it's dark out, you're pulling energy from the grid, and when the sun's out, you're using the energy at your home, and the excess energy is being actually exported to the grid, and you can use it at any time. So that's a little bit about how net metering works. And when the grid goes down, unfortunately, your solar array has to shut down in order to isolate from the grid, and you need a battery backup if you want to actually have solar energy when the grid is down. So let's take a look at sort of how this works, on your bill essentially. And so what you'll see, and it looks different from region to region, but this is the basics. So let's say during the course of a month, you use 300 kilowatt hours from the grid and you exported 200 kilowatt hours to the grid. You'd have an amount of electricity that you paid for on your bill of 100 kilowatt hours that month. So on those months that, let's say the darker months like this, months like January, February here, I'm only producing a portion of the energy I need, and I'm only paying for the difference. So that's a little bit how that works. So there are some other things to really think about when you're getting solar here in Ohio. And one thing that people are often sort of afraid of is that solar might not work here because of the snow, because of the gray days. Of course, Decembers and Januaries are pretty dark months out of the year. But because of net metering, essentially, you can produce a lot of energy in the summer months. In fact, in June, July, here in Ohio, we have more sun than Florida does. We're at a higher latitude, and we can produce technically more energy during the peak hours here in this part, and on these latitudes and other places in the country that are sunnier year round. So it actually all evens out in the end, and solar can be pretty productive here in Ohio. Snow isn't super horrible. There's things you can do to make sure that the snow's not going to slide off the panels and hurt anybody. You can put snow guards up. You can also put guards up around the panels to protect from squirrels and other types of critters from getting under them. Very common here in Ohio to purchase those additions, and they're not usually very expensive. They add a few $100s to the overall cost of an average array. It can go up to a few thousand for larger arrays, but for the average residential customer, we're looking at $500-600 for those additions. And then snow tends to melt off solar panels relatively quickly. So the snowy days often don't amount to too much loss of energy production throughout the year. So we see here some example pricing. This is just examples that we use to kind of demonstrate the math. And it's pretty close to what you could expect to pay on average if you go to the market to get solar in Ohio. And here in Ohio, about $3 a watt is what you can expect to pay. And if you take that $3 per watt and multiply it times 5,000 or 5 kilowatts, you get that total gross cost of that system, and that's 15,000. 5 kilowatts in Cuyahoga County, at least where I live, is pretty typical size system. Again, I'd say mine's 6. In the state, we see more of an average of 7 kilowatt size systems. So that $3 per watt times 5,000, you get $15,000 gross cost of the system. That often includes tax and all the other fees that it takes to get the solar put on your roof. The check you cut to the installer, essentially. Right now, there's a 30% tax credit, so that's $4,500 you get back in your taxes should you qualify. But most folks that have income do qualify. Then the net cost of that system brings it down to $10,500 with an average savings of close to $1,000, about $969 per year to start with. You're looking at a break-even point below 10 years now, which is pretty exciting that we're actually past that 10-year break-even point for a solar array. And then there's a cumulative savings of up to $30,000, even more if that system lasts beyond that 25 years. Most panels are at least warranted to 30 years. Some of the other equipment's warranted 25, so we use that 25 lifespan number. So you get a net profit from having a solar array. It pans out to be a pretty good investment. So here we have some financing examples. Oftentimes people use home equity loans or other types of unsecured or secured loans to purchase solar arrays, both long-term and short-term. Folks would use long-term loans for the non-tax credit portion of the solar array. Folks would generally use short-term loans to cover that 30% tax credit while they're waiting for that money back from the IRS. So here you can see there's some definite benefits at different loan percentage amounts to paying for a solar array. Highly encourage you to also follow up with your specific solar program, whether that's in Columbus, Cincinnati, somewhere else, Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. There may be some loan type products that both the county and other organizations offer in those areas that may actually be a lot better than the installer financing. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. My name is Tristan Rader again. This is our team email here. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions related to any of this content. Thank you.
All right, this brings us near to the end of our webinar. Just a few final comments. Remember to visit our website if you have any more questions. If you haven't already registered, you can visit our website today to sign up. It's completely free to participate and there's no obligation to accept an offer if you register. Lastly, a survey about our webinar will pop up on your screen. If you have a moment, we would greatly appreciate your feedback so that we can continue to improve our information sessions. That is everything. Thank you for attending. We hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, you can also contact our help desk at hello@solarswitch.com. Thank you and have a great day.